Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
And welcome to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We got a fantastic show for you guys. As usual, this week, we're going to be speaking with my friends Gary Evans and Olya Terebina on healing the heart and reconnecting to source consciousness in just a few moments. Before we get started, I'd like to, of course, welcome my assistant producer and assistant director of the Global Illumination Council, Treva Lynn Knott, is joining me live from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Hi, Treva. How are you today?
Hello. I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good. My consciousness is open. How are things? And how are things in Canada? Are you able to take a break? I know you've been so busy this week.
Yes.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad you're here with us, and hopefully the show will help both of us, because I know my consciousness has been extremely tested this week in the sense of too much work on my plate, but I think that's just a part of my path. I wonder if maybe we'll get into something about that context in the next couple hours. But with that being said, I want to let everybody know Treva is joining us live on the chat room. If you have any questions for Gary or for myself or for Olya or for Treva, go ahead and post them on the live chat. If you are listening anywhere else beside Freedom's the Revolution Radio website, you can go to freedomslips.com, click on the chat to join us in the chat room. I know there are Revolution Radio players on GIC and throughout different platforms, but if you want to be live on the chat, you want to go to freedomslips.com and click on the chat. So I did want to take a minute because I have to say that we at the Global Illumination Council have been working very, very hard, especially myself, working easily 80 to 100 hours a week right now, which is way beyond par for myself and for our board of directors, who really are our admins. And I just want to let you know that the new GIC 4.0 platform is out in beta, and I know I've spoken of this in the past. Our same address of the GIC.org. We have a beautiful, new, modern, responsive platform. It'll work on your iPhone. It'll work on your tablet. We were having some bugs. Of course, I mentioned we're out in beta, so we do have some bugs and some issues that we're still working on. But I'm very, very happy to say we've gotten many of our old members have followed us, and I hope you will too. You can join as a friend and just receive news and updates by signing up with your email, or you can become a contributing member for as little as $1.95 a month and get access to all the archives of this radio show, as well as my live video webcasts and live interviews with other people on video, as well as the classes and series and lectures that I've been doing over the last several years are available for our contributing members. But anyway, I'm very happy to say we were having problems with the forum. The forum seems to be working again, thank goodness. It's a beautiful website. I hope you guys will check it out. It's thegic.org. Like I said, I have literally been eating, breathing, sleeping, doing the coding, transferring content from the old platform to the new platform. And with so much more work to do, I think we're pretty good. All of your old favorite articles, all of your old favorite videos that you loved on the old website are now at the new website. I'm almost done with the transfer, but next we'll be bringing in all the old archives again of this radio show on video, as well as my past live video interviews with everybody. But we are hard at work. We're looking forward to the new year, and we're very happy to say that this New Year's, we are going to continue our tradition. It's very strange. Here we are. We're a consciousness network. The GIC is a consciousness network, but one of our most popular events is our New Year's party. And I guess people that are working on their consciousness like to party together. So we are going to continue with that. We are doing our live cyber party again this year. It's a 7.5-hour live broadcast. I will be joining you live. I will be VJing music videos from 6:30 or 7:30 Eastern time. We'll be ringing in the new year, starting with London, working our way across the ocean, through the Azores, through South America. We'll see the ball drop in New York, and we'll end up celebrating Treva's home of Winnipeg, Manitoba, and their New Year's. And, of course, that will be New Year's Eve night. It is a public chat, so you're welcome to join the chat room, grab a little cocktail, enjoy some music, laugh with us, and celebrate good intentions and good spirits for the coming year. And we didn't know if we were going to do it again this year. I'm getting a little too tired for doing 7-hour broadcasts, especially after these last 2 months of working almost 100 hours a week. But I figured we cannot kill the tradition. So we will be doing our 7th annual New Year's Eve cyber party. And I would look forward to having you guys there. Anyway, so without further ado, let me tell you a little bit about our guests that are joining us today. Many of you might know Gary already. He's been on the show several times, and he's pretty well known in the consciousness circle, as well as his work as a tour host of ancient spiritual sites. I call him a global pilgrim. He's just spoken at the CPAC conference recently, a couple months ago, and has another wonderful tour coming up of the spiritual sites of Egypt in January. Also joining me is Olya Terebina is joining me live from, I believe you're in Moscow. Let me know if I'm wrong. She's finishing her degree in philosophy. She is a Reiki master, and a very powerful one from what I understand. She also organizes charity events in Moscow for dogs. She is a very skilled intuitive, and she can heal people with emotional and relationship issues. So welcome to the show, both of you, Gary and Olya. It's so nice to have you both on.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi. So let me start off today's show with Gary Evans, because Gary was the one who brought this topic to my attention, the healing of the heart and reconnecting with source consciousness. And I can really relate to that because of the fact that, there seems to be a little bit of a separation between spirituality and psychology. There seems to be an urge to only focus on the positive, spirituality, happy, fluffy. And when it comes to going through the rough times, getting out of it, healing ourselves, and literally focusing on the hard stuff, paying attention to the hard stuff, some of us call it the shadow self, and some of us just call it what it is, heartbreak, having difficult times, emotional trauma, and dealing with it. This is something that many of us do not talk about, especially in the times that we live in. I feel it's very important because we are getting psychological trauma every day with the wars and the collapse of the economy and just everything that's going on around us. We're constantly being bombarded with horrible, horrible things in the media. And I feel that instead of becoming desensitized, we should acknowledge how how much this is hurting us, how much it hurts us to see, the things that we see, not only in our own lives, but in the world around us. So when Gary brought this to my attention, I said, this is a great topic. And I would love to hear from you, Gary. What was it for you that made this such a focus for a show like today? What was it for you that this? How did this come about for you? I should say.
Yeah, I'll gladly sort of paint the scene, if you will. I mean, in the past, our discussions have revolved around more of a practical application of spirituality, visiting these places and using the techniques that we've been given in like meditation and yoga and these kind of things. One of the flaws, if I had to call it that, in the spirituality, quite a common problem is that it's a lot of abstract thinking. Now, daily life throws its challenges, and in this particular case, certainly heartache I was experiencing earlier in the year, probably pretty close to heartbreak. I mean, I was in quite a tough spot, but it wasn't the first time that I've felt like that. And I think Ollie is going to speak about it later. It's really how we view these moments in our lives. So I will try to find a learning opportunity in whatever I'm going through. And so I started conducting a lot of research about heartache, heartbreak, the kind of common symptoms, and really looking for some practical advice of what people have found helpful. And I was expecting to find various articles online with some kind of practical advice about what you can do in terms of spiritual work, self-development, and there was very little, pretty much non-existent, I would say. So as you mentioned, I did find myself on a lot of psychological websites, discussions with doctors and these kind of things, but it didn't link into the various tools of the spiritual side. And there are quite a lot of different things that I've accumulated from not only my travels, but I have a lot of similar-minded friends. Different people find different things helpful to help their state of mind and their spiritual growth. And I like to try different things and see what helps me. With my sensitivity, even a subtle positive shift, I can quite often detect it. So I do have some discrimination. I can say, okay, well, that seems to help, whereas that one I didn't get anything from. So I've kind of put together my little spiritual toolkit, if you will, which I'm normally known for travelling with on tours to, just try and sort of help morale in a subtle way. And so I had all of these tools at my disposal when I was in this frame of mind, and I was very sad, I have to say. And I know that other people, it's not an experience that's just that I'm experiencing. There's going to be other people out there. And so when I realised that I had these tools, I actually got myself out of this, you could say, dark hole. Then there seemed to be an opportunity to share what I learned or remembered during this experience. And if there's anybody that's in a similar position, then perhaps it would be possible to help them too.
Yeah. And I think we all could use a little bit more of a community support in this particular field, especially those of us that are very aligned with our spiritual path and our spiritual awakening. Like you said, Gary, there's not much out there. You know, we see a very big separation between spirituality and the healing of the heart process. And we mentioned it a little bit before the show, how that term healing gets skewed a little bit. You know, it almost becomes generic in the sense that, oh, I'm sending you healing or spiritual healing, et cetera, et cetera. And we can talk more about this later on in the show. But to do that nitty gritty work and having support from a spiritual sense, and what I mean by that is non-religious, non-psychological sense, is very, very difficult to come by.
Yeah, so, I mean, the ideas that I wanted to discuss is because the difference between spiritual tools and a kind of a computer. A computer, if you do something on it and you get this very direct, I want to watch a clip on YouTube. You click a couple of buttons and you achieve what you wanted to. Whereas these subtle spiritual techniques work in a different way to that. And this is the problem that a lot of people have intellectually with it. They expect to do something and have this direct result. Otherwise, they say, oh, well, that's kind of a woo-woo thing and it doesn't do anything. But spiritual techniques don't work in such a direct way most of the time. Occasionally, there might be something. If you take someone to one of these ancient sites or something that's so powerful, you can have a dramatic shift. But if we're talking about being at home in a low place, then just using something of a subtle nature, you're not going to see this direct impact.
Right.
So my suggestion is that we view these subtle techniques, and I mean, I'll list a few because I think it'd be good to get an idea of what I'm talking about. So the kind of things that I was using, so I like to spend time in nature. That helps me. So getting outside and in the sun, grounding, we've discussed, I think, in the past, getting the bare feet on the ground. Exercise or something, to kind of get the endorphins flowing. That's always very good for changing our state of mind. Something, maybe swimming or something. Of course, I love yoga, and that really is the one I can rely on yoga as a big part of this system. Then there's breathing techniques. I mean, you can do the kind of alternative nostril breathing, and that can balance the hemispheres of the brain. Spending time with animals or spending time with friends. And then there's these other kind of more subtle techniques. So there's like the Bach flower essences, which I definitely feel they've helped me, which is these essences made out of flowers by Dr. Bach. Yeah. Was the chap that invented them, and they do they're for emotional healing. So they're designed for the heart of this subject. But again, they need to be used over a period of time. Yeah. And then there's another type that I've really tuned into recently, which is the orchid essences. And they come from an island off of the coast of Scotland. And you can find them under orchid essences on the internet. And they are definitely very helpful combined with these other things. Of course, we can put crystals. People work with crystals, crystal healing, that kind of thing. Crystals can be another subtle technique. Sound, I would say, can be very powerful. That's the area that I spend a lot of time on. And in fact, I've just hooked up with a new guy in London, and we are doing an event for the 21st of December. So really focusing on the sound side. And then you've got other subtle things like incense, sage, Palo Santo, and mantras as well can be very helpful. So if you kind of come up with out of that list that I've suggested, if you come up with the ones that appeal to you and use those over a period, it took me about 2 to 3 weeks of kind of intensive use of basically all of those things, and I went from being very unhappy back to kind of feeling like my heart's filled with joy. So that's really what I'm trying to help people to think about. So over time, lots of subtle things, you can get quite a strong end result.
And I have to mention this because Olya is a Reiki practitioner as I am. For my personal toolbox, if I may add a little bit to that, is I find Reiki has been wonderful with me with sound. I love doing toning with a group of people. I don't know if everybody knows what that means, but I'm very lucky to have an intention group here in Roanoke that I facilitate, and we do toning at the end, and it just always is very elevating. One of the things that I also find is, and I know this sounds very simple, but it's very subtle and it's very symbolic of cleansing, is taking a shower, or taking a bath, doing a healing bath. as well as a diet. And for me, when I'm getting a little bit low, I'll eat something very high protein, and it always gives me an emotional lift. And of course, it's different for everybody, I would think.
No, I actually agree that it's different to everybody, but I think that it's true that Reiki definitely helps all people as well as sound, because it's basically the vibrations and energy working at different levels. And so even if you don't want it to happen, if you actually experience those vibrations, they will work on you anyways. Because for me, they are much stronger than people actually think nowadays they are. They have been using energy and vibrations for a very long time. And unfortunately, nowadays, there are not so many studies that actually show the impact. I would wish there could be more, but it's without no doubt that Reiki and sound vibrations work extremely well on anybody.
And I'm glad to see they're showing, what's it called? Cymatics, I believe it's called. Gary, have you ever heard of that? It's
Yes.
the way the natural vibration shows up on sand or anything like that. So it does show that we do have some type of physical proof that sound does reorient. I mean, even if it changes our blood flow, momentarily, our brain waves.
So, well, the side of it that I've looked at, there is an interesting video on YouTube. If you do Cymatics Great Pyramid of like the inside the Great Pyramid, you see it form in the sand. It's very beautiful. And then you can tie in the work that Dr. Emoto was doing with water and vibration. So I think, the sound is definitely impacting the water in our body, but it also does work on the physical as well.
And it's very interesting, sorry Bernard, that sound can actually work on each organ separately, because depending on which vibration you choose, you can tune your organ to be in alignment with its normal vibration. And it's very interesting, actually, because nowadays some scientific papers in Russia show that there are some studies done, and they're trying to create the machine, which would be some kind of vibration attunement machine, and it will work on each organ and try to tune the vibration of that organ into its normal vibration. And I think it's fantastic. It's just the practical implication of what we're talking about at the moment.
Oh, that does sound fantastic. That would be amazing. And, as we're talking about this, we over the last, decade, I guess, we had the binaural beats, where the sound creates a third sound in each hemisphere of the brain. And we've had a lot of studies on megahertz and how that affects the mood and whatnot, as far as I guess the decibel range. I don't really know the scientific aspect much, but we do see a lot of it in the consciousness world, especially in the conspiracy side of consciousness, where, that is said that, certain music has a very specific megahertz to create chaos and whatnot. And we can see where, that could be used negatively and positively. And if we are someone who is, listening to commercial radio all day long, maybe that might affect our mood. So we might have to turn that off and do find something with a more positive vibration, so to speak.
Definitely. Well, actually, UCLA were the first people that I came across that were looking at the hertz frequencies that impact the brain. This was something that I spoke about at CPAC. And the University of Trieste in Italy are the ones that are kind of leading the way with the ECG at some of these ancient sites at the moment. So they're doing some very interesting research. I've been talking to Paolo de Bertolis there, and the magic number seems to be around 110 hertz, somewhere in between 108, 112 hertz. You see the brain activity shifting from sort of left-sided dominance, and different areas of the brain become active. I mean, it's a personal in that very slight variance in that frequency range will have a slightly different effect on different people. But somewhere around 110 hertz is generally where we use the chanting, the toning, as you mentioned, inside the pyramids for these amazing experiences that we share. So the science backs up what we've been enjoying.
Right.
And that was why I was looking into more, because CPAC's about bridging the gap basically between spirituality and the kind of mainstream perspective. So it didn't take me long to find scientific papers at Princeton. There's a lady at Stanford that's doing some very interesting research in Peru, Chavin, and she's now saying that the sites, in her opinion, were designed with acoustics from the ground up, and that included them diverting rivers. So we've now got a university saying, okay, well, they really thought that sound was this important. They've basically sculptured the whole landscape and diverted a river for at least a mile or two to this site, and because they were looking for some kind of positive effect from sound. And they've done the directional microphones in these chambers, and they can see how the sound flows around into a central point. And of course, they can only conclude that probably a priest or a shaman type stood in there and kind of spoke to his flock as it was. But the first thing I would do if I went there with a tour group would be to get us all to sit round in a circle and do some chanting, and then we would probably start entering into some different states of consciousness. So it really depends on how you look at how you use these sites. But the main thing is we've got universities saying the sites are designed with sound. We've got universities saying, well, these sound frequencies the sites resonate to, we can see something going on in the brain. And then on our tours, it's that part that's happening in the brain that we're basically exploring to get to these very deep states of relaxation. And quite often incredible epiphanies have happened to me and others. So, yeah, the sound is it's a blessing. I mean, I'm just in love with the whole area and sharing it with others.
That's wonderful, and we're going to talk more about that, of course, during this show. We've only got a few seconds left on this segment, but I just wanted to maybe get us thinking, because I find that one of the hardest things that people go through when they're in a long-term sadness, and I hate to use the term depression, is to be motivated to do something about it. And I was wondering if maybe during the break we could think about perhaps what we can offer our listeners as to, you're having a bad day, you're having a bad month. Most people want to escape, whether they escape through the internet or video games or drugs or alcohol or television. They don't want to do the work. And I'm wondering if we could perhaps share a little bit or think about that, and perhaps what we can do to help people get motivated to heal the heart. And we'll be right back after this commercial break.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are doing a very special presentation today on an issue that not many spiritual people really talk about or tackle: healing the heart, reconnecting with source consciousness. And before the break, I had mentioned that, actually, let me just share with you a little bit of my journey. And I know that over the years, I've been very lucky to have learned the tools of healing, to learn what works, what doesn't work. But for the average or the newly spiritual person, someone who's going through the awakening process now, it's very common to slip into that realm of self-pity or the victim, as well as the reality that when we're depressed, we really don't want to do anything. I know that over the years, I have learned to literally enjoy the depression, to enjoy the sadness, and to let it pass, to go through it. But that has taken years of practice, and that has taken years of developing, as Gary said earlier, a toolbox of techniques to move through that. But for those of us that don't have that toolbox, that don't have that experience, I was wondering, Gary and Olya, if you could maybe suggest a few things, easy, and what I call them the baby steps, of getting out of that mindset, because so many times, and I see it in the life of my friends, people that have perhaps a great example, a very dear friend of mine was on antidepressants for years. And it was my understanding antidepressants are to be used during the depression, not for the rest of your life. But of course, you know how big pharma is. They want everyone to be on everything. And then they're like, take 2 more, take 4 more. And this person tried to get off of them and was doing fairly well for several months, and suddenly got a little depressed and turned right back to them. And it's like, oh, I got to get back on these pills. It's the only thing that helps. So what do we tell these people that are, I don't want to say addicted to antidepressants, but addicted to depression, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Addicted to being in that depressed state and thinking that they don't have the power to change it within themselves.
Well, I think, do you want to take that, Gary, or are you okay with me taking it?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Well, actually, I can feel you, Bernard, because I have lots of friends at the moment who are taking antidepressants, and they feel that it's better for them to just stay on them for the rest of their life than change anything. And the problem might be that people feel that it might be easier to take a pill every day, every now and then, than to actually change something, because every change you have to actually do something, and you have to make a decision yourself. It's only you who take care of yourself. You can actually make a decision to ask someone for help, but it's you and your responsibility. And some people just don't want to see that responsibility inside themselves, probably because they're just not too strong. And what I saw is that the first thing, when there are even the small signs of depression, of pain, of sadness, what we all have to get rid of is shame. Because it's really sad, but our society likes the Western society. I mean, I grew up in the Western society where feelings such as sadness, fear, depression, anger are all seen as something abnormal that you have to get rid of. And if it happens to you, it means you are really ill, that you have to go to hospital, you have to take the pills. And I mean that if you look at all the things that happened around us, as you, Bernard, was mentioning, like the economics, it's not much that we can do as people. Fair enough, we can't do all the things, the economics, to change the situation. And the weather, some global changes, sometimes we're just not able to correct these things. And this is the normal change. And we have to face that sometimes the pain is just the sign of the change. Right. The change which could be sometimes even good. I mean, you go to the doctor and you have your tooth, the rotten tooth, which needs to be taken out. Of course, it involves pain, certain amount of pain. But my point is, if you actually see that pain as the bad thing, it will just stick into your subconscious, and you will see it as always pain, suffering, and sadness is always a bad thing. But you can never predict the future. So pain, when you go to the doctor, you forget about it within days because you don't feel pain anymore. Mm-hmm. So I think many people have the problem, and I mean, I myself work on it really hard because it's within our society, and these are the boundaries that we had when we were born. We have these boundaries which say that pain is always bad, suffering is always bad, and sadness is always bad. If you look and you change your perspective on these things and say that, as I never know what this pain might bring, for example, if you went through a breakup and you have huge amount of pain, and you might think that it's the end of the world and pain is bad, it means I'm bad because I feel a bad feeling, and you blame yourself and make all these feelings go deeper and deeper into your core. For me, it's not right. I think you should look at it and say, well, it might be good, actually, in a way that I got rid of the problems that were associated with the relationship. I got myself free so that I can work on myself, and next time I don't make such mistakes. Or I can choose someone who suits me better in a relationship. So for me, it's all about changing the perspective on pain and suffering, because any event that we see as painful or sad or as something that we suffer, it's not actually like this. It's just what we put it as, because we as people like to put pluses and minuses on events. It's either good or it's bad. It can't be neutral. And it's understandable because we grew up with certain beliefs. And what I found useful, and actually it is one of my friends who's a life coach who suggested a technique to me, which I use nowadays. It's going through each event, each hurtful or sad event in your life, and writing it down. It could be a painful breakup. Then you look at the belief or a thought associated with this breakup. For example, I feel really sad and I don't believe men anymore. And then you actually go down and say, so what does it mean to you? Well, it can mean that I feel insecure and I might end up lonely when I'm old, with cats and dogs and no one else around me. Well, and then you ask, but why? And you say, well, it means to me that I'll just be lonely and no one likes me. So this belief that no one likes you is actually at the base of your consciousness. So whatever you do, whatever you think of, it will just stick to that base belief and make all your thoughts and negative patterns negative. Just because you have this stupid belief that you can't succeed in life, that you will end up lonely with cats, and that no one likes you. So if you actually work through each event and each related thought and base belief to this event, you will see that there are so many negative schemas in your thoughts, which you actually have to work through. And as soon as you work through it and say, well, who said that will end up lonely? Or who said that no one likes me? And you change those. So it's like the hierarchy of beliefs and thoughts. And you work through all the stuff that you have to the base, and you change the base from negative into positive. So it springs the positive energy upwards to your thoughts, to your related beliefs, and hence to your actions. That's as simple as that. Because as soon as we just start feeling those feelings of sadness and pain, and that we are not able to change anything, it's an indicator that you need to stop and you need to look at things rationally, because we as humans usually overcomplicate the situation. And that's why, as I always feel with myself, I have a huge problem, and I work through it every day, but still have it, that we need to stop ourselves from going in this monkey circle where we can't just escape anywhere from those negative thought patterns, and think rationally. And then think, okay, who told me that I'm not lucky or that no one loves me? And you think, well, my parents. And who taught my parents? My grandparents. And it just goes on. And no one actually knows why you are unhappy or you need to be an unlucky person. It's all the boundaries that we build ourselves, or the society build ourselves. As soon as we get rid of those, we understand that pain, any kind of suffering, it might be a positive thing, it might be a negative thing. It's how you look at it. And if you look at pain from, divorce, from a breakup, and you just say, well, the pain is actually a perfect indicator by my organism, by my body, that something is wrong in my thoughts or in my body, you will thank yourself and you will thank the person who actually brought you to that breakup, because you understand that it's a perfect chance for you to actually work on your beliefs, work on your thoughts, and sometimes work on your body. Because if you didn't feel pain, you would not be a healthy person nowadays, because pain is a perfect indicator for you to understand that there is something wrong and that you need to change it. So pain is a useful thing. It's not a negative thing, definitely not. It's how you look at it. If you want to see it as a negative thing, it would be a negative thing for you. If you think of it as a positive thing, which gives you resources to actually fight against this feeling in yourself, fight against other problems in yourself and improve yourself, then it could be a wonderful thing. Actually, nowadays, if anything painful ever happens to me, I always thank myself. I thank the high consciousness for giving me this experience, for improving myself. And I thank people who actually hurt me because, well, our friends don't hurt ourselves that much, but our enemies do. And you need to thank your enemies for giving you that good chance to improve yourself and work on your problems. So my point is, if you actually look through all the thoughts and patterns of behavior and patterns of thinking throughout all your life and all the events that happened to you, you would find that you have gained enormous amount of negative schemas. And as you work through them, life becomes much easier, I would tell you, because it's not something that you can actually learn, because I think it's something that you actually have to experience to understand. And it works. From what I have seen with my friends, from what I've experienced with myself, and I would definitely recommend just stop and let's think rationally about how you feel in the current situation. And that's it. I mean, that's my little thing which I think could help anyone. I mean, there are all other things like vibrational healing, Reiki, energetic healing, nature, good rest, yoga, but they all should work in combination with changing your belief patterns. Because if you don't change those beliefs, they'll come back to you in a few years, in 5-10 years, and it will be the same problem.
You know, you're saying something so beautiful and so profound that I've been thinking and feeling, and I haven't been able to put it in words. And I thank you for sharing that, because when I find for myself, I mean, for example, I let me just say, and I don't try to put the responsibility on astrology, but I am what they call a Cancer Pisces. I'm very emotional. I have been my entire life. I'm very emotionally sensitive. I'm very intuitive, very psychic. I'm a great healer, all of those things, but I sense energy very easily, and I sense pain, I guess, emotional pain very easily. And so I do have my moments. I had one earlier today. I was feeling very depressed, very let down. And it's very interesting, because what you just said is kind of what I was doing without realizing it. It's saying, well, the first thing I said to myself when I was getting a little down this morning was, oh, here we go again. And I'm like, do you hear what you just said? Here we go again. So if it's happening again, what are you not learning? And
exactly.
To hear myself say that was, wow, so you're not learning something, so it's just going to keep happening until you get through it. You can't run away from it. You can't hide it with a pill. You can't hide it with a vacation. You can't hide it by giving it to somebody else. This is something that keeps coming back to you because you have not embraced the base of it, exactly what you were saying, the base of it. Why does it keep happening? And it takes a lot of courage for somebody to do something like that. And I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about anybody to have the courage to say, and I've heard other people say it too. Oh, it's going to happen again. Here we go again. You know, people always expecting the worst in their life, and oh, the next boyfriend's an alcoholic, and that one he beats me. Well, here we go again. He's another crappy boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. And I can't help but remember when I left my 10-year relationship of saying, I love this person so much, but I feel so much better without them. And yeah, it hurt to be away from them. And it's funny, I was thinking of them yesterday, and I'm like, I really do love them, but I don't want them in my life again. They hurt me. They made me feel insecure. They made me feel so. I can't help but say that when you're feeling that hurt, and kind of like a little bit of what you were saying, but to I guess, synthesize or not to simplify, but to maybe synthesize might be the word, is that when you're going through this pain, when you're going through this depression, I like Abraham Hicks says that it's an emotional guidance system. Your body's telling you, I don't like that. So maybe I need to look this way and start moving in that direction, away from that. It's not that life is not full of pain. It's not that life isn't full of suffering. Of course there's going to be pain. Of course there's going to be suffering. But I'd also like to think that our higher selves and our spirit utilizes that to direct us or change the direction of our focus, change the direction of where our life is heading.
Exactly.
Because we're going to keep repeating it over and over again. So I guess, as I was saying, to simplify, when you're feeling pain, that's your spirit saying, you know what, we better make a left. We don't want to keep going straight because we're going to keep feeling this pain. We need to do something and change the direction, change the course.
Yeah, that's how it is. There is no other way, I'm telling you, because I tried. I'm usually the person who, when I encounter pain, I think, well, it will go. I'll just eat it. I'll make it go deep into myself, and probably it will just dissolve somewhere inside me. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen. You have a problem, and this is a problem where you have pain. It indicates that you have a problem, and you have to do something about it. And when you just think, well, I'll just do usual stuff, and it will just get resolved somehow, it won't happen. It will go deeper and deeper inside yourself. And then people ask, why do I have pain in, even kidneys, which I actually do have, or in stomach? Why do I get stomach aches? I eat well. Or why am I stressed out? Or why do I have depression? These are all the problems that didn't get resolved throughout your life, that you were thinking they'll get resolved. No, they will just go into your body and stay there. First go into your emotional body, and then as they progress, they will go into your body. And that's actually when yoga works really well, because it just pushes those toxins, those negative energies out of your body when you do certain long-held postures. And that's why I'm not saying that we can't do anything when it happened to us, because I felt that I had lots of stuff happening in myself in terms of physical body, emotional body, and spiritual body. You can always take action. It's only the matter of whether you want to take action, because you can even ask people around yourself. There is nothing wrong in asking for help. I mean, counseling or friends, family, they can also help you because they probably came through the same experience. And you just have to say to yourself, from now on, I will take care of myself, of my body, of my thoughts, of my beliefs, and of my happiness. And that's it. From there on, you start to actually not neglecting a problem where there is a problem. You wouldn't do that at work. I mean, if your website went down, you wouldn't just neglect it or
Right.
it will get resolved somehow. You just look into this problem and say, well, what can I do in such situation? And that's how we need to take care of ourselves, because that's the main problems that we all face nowadays. No one actually told us in schools or universities, no matter how much we study, we don't know how to take care of ourselves.
You can say that again. It's true.
Yeah, well, I think it is. Yeah, because they all teach us how to take care of others, how to think well, how to behave well, what to wear, what to say, what not to say. But no one says how to be happy or how to take care of ourselves emotionally and physically more, but emotionally no. That's a taboo topic. And it doesn't need to be a taboo topic. That's why it's so important people like us actually discuss problems and say, people, it's okay you have a problem. We all have the same problems. It's the matter of what you do and how you deal with those problems. And we all need to come up with some system which would work for everybody, because we are all suffering that. And let's stop it. Stop the suffering and stop inflicting pain on ourselves. Yeah.
What was that woman in the, I guess it was in the 80s and 90s, Susan Powder, Stop the Insanity. I don't know if you all remember that. I'm probably
Exactly
aging
that.
myself. There was a shaved head aerobics lady, and she used to go around screaming, "Stop the insanity!" And it's true. We're taught to be insane. All right, we have a commercial break. We'll be right back after.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio. Before we get back to our very, very interesting conversation, I just wanted to mention a few things about our family here at Revolution Radio. We are having our annual holiday auction here at Revolution Radio. I believe we're having the second one. But I just wanted to let you know, for all of our listeners who are looking forward to contributing to Revolution Radio, keeping us alive and on the air. And if you hate PayPal, like many people do, we do now have an alternative here at Revolution Radio. It's at www.gofundme.com, Revolution Radio. Again, that's gofundme.com/Revolution Radio. We also wanted to let you know that for the holidays right now, if you give a $25 donation through PayPal, for those of you that still use PayPal, you're going to get a very nice gift, a free pocket knife from our family here at Revolution Radio. Also, please make sure, yes, we do still have our holiday auction fundraiser going on. As well as I'm sure you heard during the break, you can get all of the Just Bernard Show archives or any of your favorite radio host archives here on Revolution Radio right now. You can actually pre-order them. We're taking pre-orders for the Host Archive Library DVD. And you will help me. You will help the GIC because the Just Bernard Show and the Global Illumination Council will receive 50% of the net profit. So by purchasing the Host Archive of this show, we will be able to help fund the Global Illumination Council, which is very much needed right now. Let me just also, as well as announcing for the Revolution Radio, we'd like to let you know that we are desperately in need of funds at the GIC. If you can, please, of course, buy the Just Bernard Show archives here at Revolution Radio. Let us get 50% of those net sales as well. If you would like to make a donation directly to me and the GIC, you can go to thegic.org and just click support or become a member. Anyway, I hope you all got that. There's a lot going on, and we're very happy and proud to be a part of the Revolution Radio family, and we do need your support to keep us going. We got a wonderful holiday thing going on here, and I want to wish everybody that's listening a very happy holiday. With that being said, let me bring back our wonderful guest, Gary Evans, to the show. Gary, I wanted to ask you the same thing. What can we do to kind of get ourselves out of that funk, motivate ourselves out of the funk? Looking at this at the core issues, what is it that you feel is some tips that you could offer us on this particular topic?
Sure. Well, there was definitely a lot of good stuff discussed in the last segment. I mean, when I was thinking about this show, I was thinking about myself when I was like at the bottom of my low point, and it is very difficult when you're there. So I was thinking if we could reach anyone that's at that point now, what's the best advice? And the kind of analogy that I came up with, because I was writing things down even when I was at this point, thinking about how it could help somebody else, was if you can just nurture an acorn of strength inside yourself to make a positive change, because it does come from strength. What we're going to try and do with these techniques is develop our inner strength so we're going to be happy again. But when we get very low, it's hard to even muster a small amount of strength. So that's why I've likened it to an acorn, and we're going to grow this very small acorn into a huge oak tree of strength by using all of these different techniques we discussed earlier. but it has to come from that point. So when you're in that sadness, and as you were saying, I'm also a believer in it's better to let, if there's tears that need to come out, the releasing method seems the healthier rather than the suppression, because you will going to have to face that at some point. But there's also this phase when you're releasing through tears. There's a weirdly addictive feeling to that stage, in that you can get lost in the sadness and the tears and just be in that phase. So my self-talk at that point is, okay, it feels like I'm very sad. It feels like something wants to come out. I'm going to try and purge it and then put some kind of a time scale. I think I gave myself like 2 to 3 days. It's like, I'm going to focus. I'm going to try and get this stuff out. It's okay. It's part of the process of healing. I've been through it before. But don't let it go on and on and on, because it can. You could say it's unhealthy if it keeps going on. I mean, depends on the situation that you've had. We're talking about relationships, but it can also be loved ones, long-term partners that are lost, family problems, all of these different areas, which Olya very smartly pointed out. That's why we've been doing the show together. I brought this concept about relationships to her for a discussion, and she said, well, actually, this can apply to a lot more people than just romantic connections.
Now, losing your wealth.
Yes.
I've done that too. That sucks.
So anything that's got us to this very low point, we can apply these techniques to, but it has to come from that point of self-determination where you say, okay, I'm going to purge it, but then I'm going to find just this small acorn of strength and try and start introducing some of these positive changes, whether that's going out for a walk in nature, spending time with animals, talking to friends, all the things I ran through. Just try and start putting some of these positive techniques into your life, and then that strength, you will start to grow it, and you'll be capable of adding more of these techniques. And just keep going. Have faith that they will definitely help. Some of the things that perhaps you've used in the past that have helped you, well, let's go back and use some of those again. They've helped you before, whatever it might be, and just start getting these things going. And I can tie it into a very interesting paper that I found on, it was on the US National Library of Medicine and National Institutes of Health website. I believe it's a peer-reviewed paper, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of these subjects. Now, they've titled the paper, Open Hearts Build Lives, Positive Emotions Induced Through Using a Loving Kindness Meditation Build Consequential Personal Resources. So I can boil that down in a much simpler way, and what they're saying is, if we use a meditation daily, which they did with a group in this particular study, they can see that by having your mind in this positive state, we're going to have to give it a label. Let's call it a positive state of mind or a more uplifted state of mind. If we repeat this exercise each day, and then we compare the people in the group against people that aren't doing it, they can see that how they're measuring it, I'm not quite sure, but they're happier. They're kind of terming it in that way. So by using positive techniques, you can transform yourself from either an unhappy person to a happy person, or from a happy person to a happier person. So that's one point they're making in this paper. It's very interesting to see that it was done in this way, the study. But they're also referencing you're building consequential personal resources, which you could call inner strength. But what they're saying is, if you use these self-development techniques, these spiritual techniques, study the meditation, do the yoga classes, that when a stressful event happens in your life, you are better prepared to handle that than somebody that isn't investing time and effort in themselves. And I think this is really boils down to the root of this self-development spiritual path. What is the difference between somebody that's doing these techniques and spending time on themselves compared to an individual that isn't doing anything? And in this paper, they're saying it's giving you these personal reserves in times of need to call upon. So if this stressful event, maybe it's a work event, hits you, you are better prepared to deal with it in a calm and mindful way, as opposed to somebody that's a very stressed out individual who's given a stressful situation, and they're more likely to kind of explode in an angry way. So it's a good paper. I'd recommend looking it up on their website and making of it what you will.
Gary, would you share? Do you have the link to that? And if you do have the link, will you share it with me in the Skype IM so Treva can post it? Treva, when he posts that, will you post that in the chat room? I think that would be a great resource for everybody. Speaking of, while you were talking, I couldn't help but think. Actually, both of you, while you were talking now on this particular issue, and we keep saying spiritual people, spiritual path. And I can't help but feel that we all seem to have a very different definition of spiritual, and that may have something to do with it as well. And I don't mean here on the show. I mean on the planet. A great example is, I was raised Latino. My last name is Alvarez. I have a Latino temper. When I burst, I burst. I will use the F word. I will be very dramatic, very loud, and that's just a part of my culture. It doesn't mean that I'm this violent person, but in my culture, we yelled and we screamed and we waved our arms and we banged on the wall, and that was the way that, Latino Caribbean culture is. I can't help but think about, now that I'm living here in Virginia is a very good example. I'm living in a predominantly Bible Belt, very religious area, predominantly Irish and Protestant and German, very white, Anglo, kind of like England. and when they see me or hear of me, having I call it my rants. I have a rant. I just like, oh, that's it, da, 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 and I just get very Miami on them, for lack of a better term. They're like, oh, and I thought you were a spiritual person. Spiritual people don't act like that. I said, spiritual people are human beings. Just because I'm a reverend, just because I do talks on spirituality, just because I meditate every single day, just because I teach classes on spirituality, just because I'm ordained to marry people, doesn't mean I'm not human. And I find that a lot of people make that disconnect in the spiritual realm or the spiritual circles. And we talked a little bit about this before the show, and I thought this was a great talking point, is that spirituality does not mean not being human. It means empowering the human experience, not suppressing it. Just like you said, Gary, we're not here to suppress our humanity. And for me, I went through that stage, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. I went through that phase in my early 20s, especially after I had my contact with the beings that are now what I consider my guides. That and it's all in my book, the Book of One. But I remember leaning toward, looking for resources to back up my experience and finding Buddhism. And Buddhism being very much about disconnecting from the ego, which is all wonderful, and I'll get more into that a little bit later. But how suffering, we must transcend suffering. Humanity is about suffering. Being alive is about suffering. Ego is about suffering. And as a Westerner, my interpretation at that time of Buddhism was that, well, being human is horrible. Suffering is horrible. That's not being, if you're suffering, you're not being spiritual. We have to disconnect from our emotions and not feel happy, not feel sad, just be the observer, etc., etc., etc. And I'm very grateful as I matured, now that I'm in my 40s, I can say I want to be happy, and there's nothing wrong with being happy. I don't need to be lacking in emotion. I don't need to be lacking in the ebbs and flows of emotion and life, because that's not being alive. That to me is being a Buddhist monk living in the Himalayas in a cave, and I live in a town. I live with humanity. I don't have the luxury of going up to a monastery for the rest of my life and meditating all day. and so I just wanted to share that because I thought that was a very important key topic that we talked about a little bit before the show, and to perhaps give our listeners the opportunity to say, you know what, wherever you are, no matter who you are, you're allowed to be who you are. But it does not mean that you're not spiritual. Not being spiritual is not doing anything about your happiness, not doing anything about your sadness, not aligning with your higher self, and that's a whole nother discussion. But I will say that as my work, my meditation, my personal yoga, my energy work, my Reiki work, doing the work that I've been doing for the last 25 years, has helped me to align with my higher self and has allowed me to be more intuitive and more, how should I say, more accepting of life's ebbs and flows. And I know we were talking a little bit about reconnecting with source consciousness, and I'm wondering if that's something you would consider as a helpful tool, that by connecting with our higher selves, we'll be able to greater understand these dark moments, these dark times, and perhaps even these dark behaviors that we might have.
Well, to jump in on the term spiritual, that's the reason that I use spiritual and self-development, the two labels or names. Self-development, I think, is probably more descriptive. Spiritual, from my experience, pretty much means something different to each person. In some people's minds, it's got very negative things attached to it. And so it's good to use different terms. But what we're talking about is something that encompasses working on ourselves, I think. I mean, I'm trying to make myself a better person. It seems part of this path, whatever we want to call it, has helped me understand myself better. I think there's still a lot more to learn, and that's kind of an exciting thought. When I was at school, I didn't even know that there was somebody to get to know better, and it was myself. And part of that getting to know me better, I hope, is helping me to learn more about others. That's part of the reason for the show. I went through this experience. Something helped me, and perhaps it can help other people. So that's the reason to share. And it is wonderful when you start to get to know each other better, because what we can tie into this subject, not only is it about helping us in difficult times, but these techniques are also self-development techniques to build what I would call, Schwaller de Lubitz termed the phrase heart-based emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. And I always come back to that one because it's intimately tied into what we're talking about. And through this experience, as Olya was saying, how do we view it? Well, I got very low, but it is, and I was aware of this at the point when I was very low. I was thinking, well, I've got very low, but it is like, if you imagine the elastic band, when our emotions get stretched down very low, when you come back up, you can rebound even higher than you were at previously. And that's exactly what happened to me this year. When I finally went back up to being the happy Gary, as I would call him, it was actually a new, improved, happier Gary, more aware. I felt even stronger than when I went into this cycle. So, and I was having some very deep epiphanies connected to that feeling of source consciousness or higher self, however we want to look at it. And I did have some quite strong psychic impressions. And in fact, I had a whole understanding about kind of feng shui explained to me that it's not just this vibrational area that we're looking at. It isn't just about the vibration of us, but it's also the vibration of our surroundings. And I kind of suddenly could get this new psychic impression of the things that are around me when I go to people's houses. And it was very clear in America. I visited a lady. I could see all of these things that she'd done around her house to kind of improve it. She was just collecting things, but I was able to see how each of them was improving her surroundings and making it a happier home. So that was definitely one side benefit that I would never have anticipated.
And that's a very important, I'm glad you touched on that, because I feel that's very important, is our environment. And a lot of people don't think about that in this, especially when you get depressed. if you're in a if you're in a downward spiral, many people let their homes go, let their environment go, and and so many people, especially, and as someone who came from upper middle class to almost poverty, I can tell you, even living in almost poverty, you can still have a nice home. So it's important to really create that soothing environment, or as we say, I don't want to say feng shui, but have a nice energetic flow, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not, and we talked about this last week on the show, so I think this is a great little topic. Is that liking to have nice things around you, liking to have beauty around you, is very natural. It has nothing to do with materialism or egoism. I believe we were put here on a very beautiful planet, and if we can bring that indoors, whether that be through decoration or art or whatnot, that will elevate us, that will raise our consciousness, and that will help us, give us that boost that we need when we're in those low times. To just take a look around and feel the environment. I guess that would fall under energetics, the tool of energetics.
Well,
sorry, Gary. Yeah, I actually agree with you, Bernard, and I think it's not the matter of how many things you don't have, but how many things you do have, because usually people easily forget how much they actually have in their lives. I'm not talking about even material things, though those of course do count, but I'm talking about the relationships, the friends, the job, things that they enjoy, sun, earth, water, food, anything. And that's why I think it's a very good practical exercise, and in fact I do it every evening before going to bed. Just say as many times as you can thank you for anything that you had in your life, for a cup of tea, for a nice talk, for a nice advice who someone gave to you during the day, for a nice bed, for warm clothes. And actually you would notice, oh my God, I'm rich. I have so many things and I haven't actually thought of them. And I have so much in my life that I can be grateful for. And this is actually, well, lots of spiritual people talk about that, but one of my friends in India, she told me that when I went to her, and she says, well, I'm never feeling sad, or I'm never feeling that I actually lack anything that much, because each day I just write down, thank you, God, or she believes in God, but you can thank yourself, or thank your neighbors, thank your family, anyone you want. You can thank for even the small things. And each day she just goes through all those small things, and she says, well, I have actually a lot of things, and why would I need a lot more if I have all these things? I have my relatives, I have good friends, I have people who give me advice. And it's just about, again, changing perspective. It's how you look at things that you have. You can have a small flat, nicely kept, but you can actually feel that you have anything you need in your life. Mm-hmm. And you can have huge apartments and in central London, for example, and still lack something because you just don't feel grateful for something that you already have.
That's a very good observation. And I remember in my late 20s, I was going through a very deep depression. And I was making a lot of money at the time, had a very comfortable apartment, but it was very messy. It was very scattered. And I remember I was dipping my toe into what I'm doing now, getting involved with the spiritual community and whatnot. And this woman said to me, she goes, "You are so unhappy." And I'm like, "What? I have a great job. I've got great friends. I'm popular. I make great money." She goes, "Your apartment says that you're very unhappy." And I said, "I don't know what you mean." She said, you don't love yourself. You don't love your environment. And that was a big wake up call to me. And it's not about keeping a clean apartment or a tidy apartment, but the reality of it is that it's kind of like the external becomes a reflection of the internal. And I guess that's a good observation for those of us that might be slipping into a depression, to perhaps look at our external life, to look at that as the reflection of how we are on the inside.
Yeah, I totally agree. Sorry, Gary, up to you.
That was exactly what I was going to say, and one of the things that I did, that if you are at that low point, just creating yourself a little clean healing space surrounded by some of your favourite spiritual or other self-development things, like just crystals, listening to some mantras, maybe you have some plants around you, your animals, and just start from there. It can make a difference. So the inner chaos can be reflected in the outer world. So if you do tidy up the outer world around you, it can help to create space in the head. And I think the point you were touching upon was the gratitude, because it can be a very big psychological switch that you turn on if you're thinking about all of the bad things and you suddenly start thinking in a grateful way about the positive things that you have. So it is an important subject to cover.
Yeah, and gratitude, it seems that the word is thrown around a lot, and a lot of people have kind of, I guess, the mainstream, for lack of a better term, have kind of just like pushed aside, oh, gratitude, that's so fluffy, and that's so new agey, or that's so religious, or whatnot. But the reality of it is that when we're living in gratitude, we are literally feasting on the moment. We are feasting on life. We are enjoying and acknowledging the blessings that we are given, whether they're given by the universe or given by the hard work of our two hands. It is something to be grateful for. I believe that gratitude has a very close alignment with achievement. And I say that for those that are stuck in the let's say the left brain thinking that your achievement of gratitude, your achievement of having a roof over your head, your achievement of having a job to go to, your achievement of having very good friends, your achievement of having food on the table is something to be grateful for.
Yeah, I actually totally agree, because sometimes the problem is that people wait too long to actually appreciate things that they have in their life. Sometimes people have to wait for years when they don't have anything except for one friend who would actually support them. And it's then when they actually start valuing things and being grateful that they have these things. But when you say that you are grateful for something, it's that you start valuing these things more. It's even the psychological trick. You just think of this thing and think, wow, it's actually really valuable to me. And when you go out, I tried this many times. Sometimes I don't do a gratitude thing, and then I go out. It's the usual things that I have around myself. But as soon as I actually start saying, thank you for the trees, thank you for that small flower which I saw by my door when I go out every day, I look at these things and I actually admire them. They're so beautiful and they become so valuable to me. And you can extend it from a small flower to a tree, to people around you, to your family, friends, colleagues, to everyone in the world. And then you actually see that this earth is the most magnificent place you could ever end up being in. So you just love everything around you. You value each thing that you have, because it's possible that you wouldn't have those. So you should value every day, every second, every human being, every feeling, everything on here.
Here, here. And we're going to be coming up on a break in just a few moments. So I want to take this opportunity again to remind everybody that you can find more information about my work on the Global Illumination Council and the Just Bernard Show at thegic.org, the Global Illumination Council. I want to thank Treva for keeping an eye on the chat room. And everybody, of course, you can ask us questions during the broadcast live. Just make sure to let Treva know that if you have any questions. When we return, I can't believe it's already been 90 minutes. We're going to continue this discussion with Gary Evans and Olya Terebina. We'll be right back.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
And welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are having a great discussion today on healing the heart and reconnecting to source of consciousness. And Gary, I wanted to ask you, because as someone who recently went through the raising the vibration experience, how can we tell when we are beginning to raise our vibration? I noticed that for myself, and I'm sure many people go through the same thing, that, we're finally, the fog is starting to clear. We've done the work. We're starting to move out of it, but yet we're like kind of scared to not be sad anymore because something else might happen. I'm wondering, what are some of the signs that we're getting out of it, and what does it take to trust ourselves to be happy again, to trust happiness again?
That's a very good question. From memory, the first signs that came was I didn't feel this sadness wanting to come out anymore. So that was a kind of a first step. I mean, it's about faith. I had faith in these techniques that we've been discussing. I knew that if I was determined and applied myself, that they were going to make a difference. So that was the important thing. And so it was a pretty concentrated 2 or 3 weeks. I was just tired of being sad, and I knew how much better off I am being happy. So the stages that I went through and there was an interesting one with the mantras and the music. When I was at this kind of low point, things that used to make me happy, it was like it wasn't resonating. And as I started to kind of lift myself, all of a sudden this music that I used to listen to and the mantras that I'd been working with suddenly felt good to work with again. So that was one of the signs for me. And then it kind of compounds, because then I was using these mantras like the Om Mani Padme Hum, which is one for the heart, and Om Namah Shivaya, that's for sort of removing spiritual blocks. And I mean, there's a whole list of them. I will do a talk at some point, but Deva Premal's the one that's on YouTube. A lot of her stuff's really wonderful to work with, and particularly if you look at her concerts and listen to the ones with the audience, so you get this kind of sense of the energy in the atmosphere there. So they tend to help me a lot. And you will start feeling slightly more energy, of course. Generally don't have a lot of energy or motivation when you're very low. That's the acorn of strength we're trying to grow. As we're slowly coming upwards, we're going to be capable of doing more things. That's why I kind of suggest this incremental adding things either weekly or daily, something extra, something that makes you feel better. Nice food. Again, we haven't talked about nutrition. Good diet, good water. Just just little things, and just start adding more and more. And gradually you're going to be getting more and more strength and capable of doing. So it builds. So we, depending on where you are listening now, is you're going to have to determine what point you're coming in at and what your particular capabilities are. But it's about adding these things and then becoming stronger. And suddenly it's like you kind of pop through the clouds, the kind of aha moment, and then hopefully life will be a lot better.
And it usually is, isn't it?
Mm.
I mean, you were talking about being a different person, and we do become different people once we get out of that haze. It really is a learning process, like Olya was talking about.
Yeah. No, I had actually missed my happy self. I was like, that's how I used to feel. Where have you been, buddy?
Right? Exactly. And that can come on many different levels. And I want to share something personal with everybody as well on that particular note, is that I remember, when I dedicated myself to the work that I'm doing now, which was back in 2006 or whatever, I gave up my career, I gave up my wealth, I just gave up everything. I said, I'm dedicating my life to what I really love, to what I want to do. And I can't help but remembering, kind of like what you said, but on a very profound level, a very deep, deep spiritual level, of saying to my friends, I haven't been this happy since I was 15 years old. I haven't been this happy since I was 15 years old. And that was about the time I went to school to do what I was doing, for the last 23 years before that. And to have that weight lifted on such a grand scale, to say, wow, here you are. I remember you, and I know what you and I are talking about, Gary, is more on a short term level, but it can also happen on a long term scale of just clearing away those cobwebs. And what a beautiful thing it is when you see that beautiful being that's been inside of you all this time, whether they were hiding for a month, a week, or 10 years, to get that sense of identity back, and talk about empowerment. So to everyone who might be a little depressed, get through it, because there is a beautiful, shiny, bright you waiting at the other end. Has anybody else ever gone through anything like that? Has any life moments perhaps reminded you of oh wow, so there's the original Olya Gary. Welcome back, you know.
Yeah, actually, that's absolutely true. When you were describing that you actually felt like you were 15 years old, I think I felt at some point when I was really happy, I just got this feeling, well, I just feel like I'm 5 years old because, yeah, even younger than you, sorry. But I think what you actually do while you get rid of all those negative things that you gain throughout life, you just peel off the layers of the onion, as they like to say, and you actually get to the center of yourself, the one that is pure, that is happy, that is energetic, that is not scared of anything, that hasn't gained all this fear and stress and bad thought habits and bad beliefs during the life. It's just you, pure, happy, stabilized, harmonized with nature. And I think it's all about that. I mean, for me, even spirituality is about that, getting rid of all the layers that you gain throughout your life and getting to know yourself better, your happy self, your free self. And when you actually know yourself that well, you understand that this is just a game. You can do anything. You can go and conquer the world. I mean, well, in a positive way, of course. I mean, you can help people. You can do the charity. You can, at the same time, work. And there are no barriers to you. Everything looks easy. Everything looks possible. You know, I even talked to one of the Chinese doctors in India while I was there. He's 40 years old, and he knows 120 techniques, medical techniques, including he finished the doctorate in America, he finished Chinese medicine, Ayurveda medicine, he knows 60 different therapies which are long forgotten. And I look at him and he's all happy, he doesn't seem stressed out. And I say, how can you actually be so happy? I mean, you have to practice so much, I would just die if I would do as much as you. And he's like, I don't look at it as you do. I'm just being myself and being happy and doing what I like in my life. Why would I see all these things as being difficult or hard or worry about those? I'm just myself and happy. And we all are. We all are initially really strong, happy, loving, compassionate beings. It just, we have to go and see ourselves as those, face ourselves, see ourselves in mirrors and say, you are that wonderful being. You are not what you have gained throughout the life, stress, thoughts. Just forget about those. Peel those off and see the beauty of your soul. And when you see it, trust me, it's just the most beautiful thing you can ever experience. And that would give you all the strength you need to conquer anything in your life.
Right on. Darn, we have 15 more minutes. I would have ended with that. I can't help but think, you know, as you were talking, I was thinking about what you're saying. I'm thinking about what Gary was saying, and what I had asked Gary prior to this was, you know, how do we trust happiness? And while hearing your answer and Gary's answer, I can't help but feel that, you know, like I said, a lot of people are afraid to be happy because they're concerned about what's waiting around the corner. You know, what's next? And I feel that there comes the gratitude thing comes into play there, definitely. But that whole idea of thinking that we need to control our emotion, this brings us almost full circle to the beginning of our talk today, that, feeling unhappy is negative, or not negative, but it's weak. Being angry is being weak, or that you're sick or something like that. But the whole idea of trusting things are going to be okay, trusting that we will get through this. As someone who speaks to hundreds of people every month, and I do get the emails, I'm having a hard time. Where do I go? How do I get through this? And I hate to sound cliche, but I do always say, eventually this is going to pass. This is only one time, one moment. These are certain thoughts. These are certain feelings. And eventually they're going to subside. It's like a wave of emotion that will ebb and it will flow. So I'm wondering if either of you could touch on the fact of the idea of trusting happiness. What can we do to build better trust maybe the question might be, how do we get rid of the fear to allow the future to happen? And I feel that's what holds a lot of people in fear and in depression, is not allowing the future to be, trying to control it, perhaps.
I could speak briefly, and if Olya wants to jump in afterwards.
Yes.
I mean, one of the big points is your self-development or spiritual practice, what you do on a weekly basis to maintain this, either we're going to call it vibration or level of happiness. Because obviously if you put a lot of effort in to changing your state of being into this person we've been talking about, your happier self, peeling off the layers, there needs to be a maintenance. And this is, I think, an area that a lot of people struggle in. Mm-hmm. So definitely to think about a spiritual weekly practice, maybe some little. One term I came up with was, you can call it spiritual pampering, where there's these events, and I point people towards Meetup. Have a look through your Meetup groups in the local area, or look at yoga studios. They do these kind of one-off events, monthly sound healings, sound therapy sessions, special yoga classes, whatever you might be attracted to. Give yourself that kind of a treat, and get some kind of a routine where it's a couple of special things a month and you're always doing something weekly, because otherwise it's like gravity. It has this effect. We're always being pushed down, so we need something that's going to vibrationally lighten us. So yeah, maintenance and a regular practice is I think my biggest tips.
It's like getting into the habit of having a higher vibration, kind of.
Yes, and then maintaining it at that peak level as best as you can. And if you need to go away for work or holidays, or you have a busy time, try and make up the sessions that you miss. Balance it out somehow. So there's this holistic approach overall.
Yeah.
I actually totally agree with Gary, and I think this is as you said, the special toolkit that is so important to have and is so useful. But actually, I've been reading the Dalai Lama's book, The Art of Happiness, a handbook for living, and it's amazing. And what he says there is, look at yourself and look at your pain. And you think it will last forever, as we all do. We always think it will last forever. But even look in your body, and the blood changes all the time in your body. It never stays the same. It circulates all the time. Look outside and see the seasons change. Everything changes, and it means that your pain will never remain the same. It will change. So that's the first thing. But for me, the second thing and the most important thing is you should really respect yourself and who you are, and say to yourself that I do deserve happiness. The thing which is the most important thing, I think, one can say to oneself, because even if you haven't done anything in your life, even if you are a child and you just haven't done anything to the world yet, you still deserve happiness just because you're a human being. Everyone on earth does deserve happiness. Respect yourself enough to give yourself that chance to experience happiness.
And that's a real tough one for many people, but it's very true. I think that is a very much a building block of spiritual enlightenment, for lack of a better term, is to know you are here on the planet to be happy, not to be miserable. Yes, life has suffering. It's a part of life, and it will change hourly, by minute, by day, by week, by month, by year. You'll have a good day, you'll have a good year. You'll have a bad day, you'll have a bad year. But that, like Gary and yourself are saying, it is impermanence. I love that Buddhist philosophy of impermanence, that nothing lasts forever, and to be alignment with that, not to allow our personal identity to become that suffering. And I think that's where the key is. You're not the suffering. The suffering is something that will pass. It is a momentary, emotional upheaval that will pass. It's not who you are. And by not allowing our self-identity to be wrapped up in that is probably a big key of getting out of these type of emotional heartbreaks, no matter what they are.
Exactly. And by giving yourself the chance to be happy and pumping the positive energy in yourself, you actually help others as well, because it's just a chain reaction. You help yourself, you are happy, people around you are happy, people around them are happy, and actually it works well. Just, I say, don't take my word for granted, just experience it. And you'll see. You can tell me what you actually found out.
I was going to make a little joke, but actually, I want to turn it into something more of a lesson about what Gary said about going to a weekly or a monthly group or something like that. And I was going to make a cute remark in the background and say, well, what happens if you're the one who teaches the group? You're the teacher. And I moan. I do. It's like I have a very busy schedule. It's like, well, what about me? I have no time to go to one of these seminars. I wish I could go to Egypt. I don't have time or the money, but I don't have the time. I'm constantly teaching. I'm constantly doing radio shows. I'm constantly working on the website. I'm constantly working on a video or a book or work. But and that's how it appears from the outside. And sometimes I do take that personally. But I will say this, because I know other people that do the work that I do, and including everybody on this call, on the show, that it's within this work that I love it. I love my weekly group. I teach a small meditation group here in Roanoke every Thursday night, and we do energy work, we do Reiki healing. I'm teaching Wicca now on a monthly level. And when I'm there, it's healing for me as well. And I'm sure that Olya can agree, as a Reiki practitioner, when I'm giving Reiki, I'm getting Reiki, and I feel fantastic afterward. So for all of you teachers out there, maybe just shift your perception of allowing yourself to receive while you're giving. And what do you think about that, Olya?
I actually totally agree. That's why I do Reiki that often.
I love giving Reiki because I feel great afterward,
Yeah, I mean, I feel such a bump of energy, and it's even I feel low, like a bit lower than usual. Not bad, but I mean lower than usual a bit. Then I do Reiki, and I feel wonderful, and people say that they feel great and I feel great, and it's just the normal exchange of energy. This is how it works. That's the natural law. And the more you give, the more you receive. That's what everyone knows. And as soon as you start giving Reiki and you give more Reiki, you feel such a pump of energy, then it just makes you do more Reiki and give out more. And I think it's wonderful. And just, again, experience it if you haven't yet, and you'll see.
Absolutely. With that being said, I want to take a moment. I don't know if we're going to have time to do that final question I wanted to do, but I do want to ask Gary. I know you have I mentioned it just a second ago, the trip to Egypt. I'd love to hear more about what's coming up.
Okay, I'll do the brief version.
Okay.
There is still time to join us. The tour starts January 4th. And runs until the 16th. We've got the geologist, Dr. Robert Schock from Boston University, coming on this tour with Patricia and Yusuf Awiyan. Robert is known for his redating of the Sphinx using the water erosion and geology. So it's a very interesting take on a lot of the sites. So I've been looking forward to going to Egypt with him for a long time. I'll be doing my side of things for any guests interested, so experiencing the ancient sites, because these places, they do definitely, you have to say they do have powerful energy fields. They have been built in a certain way. They've been built at certain locations. Just, I think, the time that they've existed, and all of these ingredients do create these very powerful places that we can visit. Much easier, some of them, to tune into your intuition. I've had very deep insights about myself and epiphanies about my path in Egypt. So it is possible there. It is a very special place. Moving forwards, I will be studying as a yoga teacher. I'm going to go to India at some point next year, and then I'm going to integrate a lot more of the yogic principles into visiting the Egyptian temples to try and give guests the closest that I can to experiencing them back in the day. It's the mindset that we approach these places to. If we approach them with a kind of still mind, our intuitions and higher self, if we want to call it that, can come through a lot more cleanly. So that's what I'd really love to share with people, because it's what makes me the happiest when I'm there. So I think that would be the right thing to share. Running, so we've got these sound healing groups with Otto Sound Therapy in London now. There's going to be, I think, some more things coming next year. So anyone based in England, London, might want to look those up, or look at my website, infinite-connections.co.uk. That's where the tour details and workshops will be.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Gary. Thank you, Olya. And I just want to let everybody know ever so quickly, if you are interested and are in the Roanoke Valley region, I will be holding a winter solstice ceremony this Thursday at the Roanoke Diversity Center. It's open to the public. It's free. You're all welcome to join us. We will see you all next week here on the Just Bernard Show. We love you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.